A year ago at this conference, Microsoft announced a new product called Microsoft Fabric. And of course, you saw today in the keynote or in 𝗦𝗲𝗀 talk about new and exciting announcements for Microsoft Fabric. Now at that time, the SQL team had also built a capability called Synapse Link for SQL. And the intention was to take operational data and move it to a place where you could do near real-time analytics. So it seemed natural to marry these technologies together. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Bob Ward, Principal Architect at Microsoft. Thank you so much for all of you here in the room and online for joining us at Microsoft Build. I'll be joined later on stage by my colleagues Idris and Anna to go through an amazing set of capabilities that we call mirroring for Azure SQL. To give that promise what I've talked about taking operational workloads, putting into the Microsoft Fabric platform, and getting all that goodness about Microsoft Fabric. A couple logistics for you. We know you're going to have some questions. As Kim just mentioned, QR code right here. We have people actually online right now to help address questions during our session. But also in the middle, Idris and I will engage in a set of frequently asked questions we've already been getting about this capability. Probably will answer a lot of things you've been thinking about. In addition, at the end of this session, if we have time, we'll take questions from you here in the audience and online. But we'll stay around here afterwards if you have questions, and also be available up in the booth area to go in more detail about these capabilities. Every time I present, everybody wants the deck. I don't blame you. At the very end of the session, I'll have a resources slide. We have already published our deck in a public place for you to download it. And guess what? Inside the deck are our demos. Our demos are recorded that we voice over, but you get the benefit of getting that deck and going back later and looking through the details of what we've demonstrated. So let's get started. So, quick funny story. About 6 months ago, 7, 8 months ago, having dinner with my wife. By the way, I don't recommend you do what I'm going to tell you. Having dinner, she took a break, left the table, and I've been itching to think about a new way to brand SQL. So I took a napkin, took a pen, started writing it down. And my wife comes back going, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I've created this new concept called Beyond RDBMS." She looked at me like, "Are you nuts? We're having dinner together. You got to put that thing away." I said, "Wait, let me finish. Because I want to tell you real quick my story." And I told her about all the goodness of things inside the database that normally require a separate product. Like JSON, we have new regex support, or spatial or graph, ledger, blockchain. And then I told my wife, hey, look at all the other stuff that you don't normally think of a database. REST API support, GraphQL capabilities, Azure function integrations, hyperscale pools, DevOps with GitHub, and then, yeah, AI and Fabric. I said, "What do you think?" She goes, "Do people like this?" I'm like, "Oh, they're going to pay a lot of money to see it." She goes, "There's something wrong with all you guys." I don't recommend you do that with your wife at dinner. But to this day, my little napkin remains this story of what is possible with SQL technologies. So let's talk a little bit more about why we're doing Fabric mirroring with Microsoft Fabric. These challenges may look familiar to you, about scaling your data, about reducing costs and optimizing your data, or about eliminating data sprawl. Every organization I talk to has this problem with data sprawl. So how do you solve those kind of problems? And how do you break down silos that you might see today in your organization? Any company I talk to about SQL today, it always comes analytics will all be part of that conversation, all have this challenge. And we believe that the Microsoft Fabric platform is a platform that can help solve those challenges. So you're like the audience going, "Bob, you're the SQL guy. What do you know about this?" Here's how I'd break it down. If you in your organization today have people need to do like moving data, curating data, transforming data, do data science, do machine learning, do AI, do warehousing, do maybe analytics, or Power BI, or even activation workflows. You need to do all those things. Many times in a company, those are different personas across the organization. What if you now had a user interface, a set of tools that are very consistent that do all of those things with governance to make sure you secure it the right way across your organization? And then what if you could put all of the data, not just SQL data, unstructured data, anything you have into a common storage format that all of these services can access in an integrated way. And that's what I like to think about the Microsoft Fabric. So to get us started, I'd like to invite my colleague Idris on stage to talk a little bit about challenges he sees and how mirroring capabilities work. Idris, come on stage.
Hey, thank you, Bob. Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Right. So Bob talked about the challenges early on. So I'm going to talk about what the current landscape we are seeing today is. I don't know if you're familiar with this. I've been in this industry for almost 20 plus years. And I've been seeing it every now and again, the snapshot of the current enterprise. You've got a line of business applications, you've got databases, you've got warehouses. And what happens, you see on the right-hand side, you have the analyst, you have the data scientist, you have data engineers waiting to get the insights, waiting to process the data. And in doing this, you see a lot of creation of processes of extract, transform, load from various sources. And this creates what Bob was describing earlier, the data sprawl. And it's an ability to then scale the data to bring those insights and consolidate from different sources. So truly to address these, one of these biggest pain points we heard is to address is what we're calling is mirroring in Fabric. So let me talk to you a little bit about what mirroring in databases and Fabric is all about. As you can see the chart where we have multiple sources. This is a SQL session, so we're going to talk a lot more about SQL. Mirroring is an ability to enable zero ETL. What does that mean? You do not have to do any more processing to manage your data. Now, enabling Fabric is very simple. You do not need to create any kind of complex ETL pipelines. You do not even have to have any kind of hosting. It's a self-managed service. And it's managing your replication for a connection of your mirror data. The biggest thing right here, the compute for replication of your data from your source to Fabric is completely free. So imagine, though, the silos we talked about, you have to standardize formats. You do not have to do that. The replication does that for you. Also, there is zero storage cost up to the Fabric capacity purchase. So for example, if you have F64 capacity, you have up to 64 terabytes of data just for mirroring. How cool is that? What do you all think? And to expand a little bit on this, the data is kept up to date. So as and when your data is being changed, it's kept in sync in near real time with Fabric. So we talked about the data silos, the challenges. You're getting data in near real time. And also, just so you know, one of the big things you might have heard about HTAP or Translytics or HOPE, these are all hybrid transactional analytical processing. You want to avoid doing analytical queries on an operational database, especially if it's a very concurrent database. So to do that, that's what this does a shift and provides you the ability to do your near real-time analytics. Now, this is a SQL session, right, Bob? So
this is a SQL session. So and a Fabric SQL. Yeah, it's together. Yeah,
so
right.
Fabric and SQL. So let's dig deeper about how the SQL database and Fabric works together. So on the left-hand side, you see the SQL database. On the right side is the Fabric. There are a bunch of items, what we call in Fabric. How many folks are familiar with the Fabric overall? Have you tried? OK. I see a bunch of your hands. That's good. When you go to Fabric, you have the option to say, hey, I want to invoke and start a mirroring capability. So what does that mean? It does a handshake. It calls SQL database and says, you give the credentials, you set it up. And there are two aspects to it. It does an initial snapshot of your data. And then it also does any incremental changes which are happening in your database. So when it does that, it creates a couple of items. And you'll see that in the demos, which we have got some amazing demos here. It creates something called a SQL Analytics endpoint. And it also creates a semantic model for you. So you can use that for your Power BI and other capabilities. But the beauty here is getting the data into OneLake. The OneLake is like the one-stop shop where you get all your data in one place. And you can manage your security, your governance, everything right there. Once it's in there, you have all the engines in Microsoft Fabric light up. You have data warehousing, your lake housing, data engineering, data factory, smart capabilities, all instantly light up. And that's where the power of mirroring brings into Fabric. So to say all this thing up, I'd like to challenge Bob a little bit. Could you probably do a demo and probably show about mirroring and Fabric?
We were talking about this, and you said, Bob, you're the SQL guy. Mm-hmm. So I want you to figure out how to mirror your SQL database in there and set up so that Anna can come later and do all that Fabric goodness stuff.
Yeah.
So let me show you what I did, okay?
All right.
All right, let's start off with this. Everybody recognizes Management Studio, right? So I said, Idris, first of all, this is my database. It's got orders and customers and products. This is kind of the adventure work sample that you see out today. It's easily to deploy in Azure Database. So first I just want to say, like, what data do I actually have that I'm going to mirror? Pretty easy peasy at this point. But Idris, did you see today the announcement about Copilot? So what I said to myself is, before I mirror this, is there any performance issues with this database? So I went into the new Copilot experience, and I said, for this database context, are there any performance problems? So I'm getting now a real-time look at performance telemetry with the database. Copilot is looking at that for me with my permissions, using my permissions, and said, oh, hey, look, there is no performance problems. So I feel pretty confident at this point can probably mirror this database. No problem. But you know what, though? I'd like to run a SQL query first, just to kind of see what it looks like. I could have done that in Management Studio, but let me go over and do it with our new natural language of SQL experience. So I've got a Copilot here as well. Oh, wow. So I'm going to launch it. And I'm going to get to the Fabric part in a minute. So I'm just going to show the SQL part. Yeah, so here it goes. I'm just doing a natural language statement. I want to see, like, what does the query look like? So Copilot has gone here and generated a query with comments. You know, I could have written this, but I don't remember all the joins. It knows my schema and my key relationships. So it can generate an easy query like this to see what results look like. So I expect, Idris, this is the kind of data to show up in the Fabric to do analytics on. Makes sense, right?
But now, Bob, I got to tell you this. When I was working on this 15, 20 years back, I used to think about it. What kind of SQL should I write? And talk to my DBA, what my performance is. I can't believe this. You can actually do this.
Exactly.
Performance and the query with the syntax.
So this is the orders data.
Wow, okay.
But hey, Idris, I know a little Cosmos.
Okay.
So what we have is we have an app with a mobile app with Cosmos that is taking like survey sentiment data from customers about our orders. Mm-hmm. It's JSON, so I just threw it in Cosmos. They also have a Copilot. So I took my actual ratings data and said, hey, Cosmos DB, in your Copilot experience, can you help me build a query? Because I just want to explore the data. What does it actually look like? So I can go into Copilot and say, hey, what are the low-rated type of things that customers are saying? That kind of natural language statement. I run that. And I'm going to get a SQL query generated for me. So I'm going to click the button here. And very easy, I can now go explore a little bit of the Cosmos DB data. I'm just setting myself up so when Anna gets here, she can go look at this data together. Because guess what? I can mirror both these databases into the Fabric, and they're related, and then I can do all that analytic goodness in the Fabric. So you probably want to see what the Fabric looks like. This is me. This is how simple it is. I go into the interface and say I'd like to mirror my Azure SQL database. So I've got this option here to say mirror. It's very simple. I create the name of a mirror. This isn't the database. This is just what I'm going to call that object, that namespace inside Fabric. So I've got a connection string, and we support Entra connection for security purposes. Yep. So I'm going to use my MFA credentials to do this, connect to the database. And here's what I love about this. I can pick what tables I want to load. So I have to do all of them. And I do actually get some warnings in some cases if there's something like a UDT or something like that that might not be able to be mirrored. Mm-hmm. In this case, I'm going to pick all the tables and say, just mirror this for me. And so what I love also about this is I can real-time monitor the replication of the database. So right now, we're just running. We're just replicating data inside mirror. And when this is finished and it's done, I can see the total number of rows. And I can even get a timestamp. I love this because when data is changed, I can go in here as well and see when was the last time the changes have been refreshed. So I've explored my SQL data, my Cosmos DB data. I've mirrored SQL. Guess what? The Cosmos DB mirroring is identical. So I've done that as well. Cool. So now that I've got this all set up, let me turn it over to you, talk about some more mirroring goodness, and then maybe you kind of bring Anna up a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Take it over.
So what do y'all think about this capability? Is it simple, intuitive? Would you be able to try this and use this? Awesome. So here we are. Bob, I knew you would.
I forgot. Sorry.
That was a nice trick.
I abandoned you. I abandoned you. Sorry. Yeah.
I just can't answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
No. The reason why it's important I come back up here is that I'm the SQL guy.
Yeah.
And I want to remember some of the stuff you've learned during the preview. Because customers have questions, right? So let me go through these. Okay? So you know that there's something called change data capture in SQL already.
Yes.
How is that different than mirroring?
Sure. So how many of you all know about SQL change data capture, the capability? Excellent. Okay. So you might be wondering, how is mirroring different than CDC? How does it complement? How does it work together? So first of all, both mirroring and CDC, they work off the same technology. Read the transaction log based on the changes. Now, the mirroring in Fabric, what it does, it publishes the changes and the initial snapshot directly into OneLake before it's just about to come. Now, CDC, what we call the change data capture capability, it writes it locally into the databases. I'm sure folks are familiar, people use a variety of use cases for auditing, et cetera. So that's one of the biggest difference. Now, mirroring also supports capabilities in DDLs. For example, altering column, adding a column, dropping a column. CDCs do not have the capability at this point in time. Right? And mirroring is now it's compatible with both CDC-enabled data. They both, if you have both CDC and mirroring together, it's not compatible at this moment because of the log scan impact and perf, right? So that's.
And to be clear here, this is a change feed tracking system, so we're reading the log.
Yes.
Just like CDC might, like replication might, but they're not compatible together because we're both trying to go read the log in this case.
That's correct.
Perfect. That sets me up for my next set of questions. So I know it's change feed. It's like CDC, but it's not that same feature. And I get snapshots into Fabric plus changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got more questions, Bob?
I have more questions.
Okay.
But so this is a question that I've had. What is the latency for this between putting my changes in SQL and seeing it in the Fabric?
Yeah, so latency is the time taken from your source system into the destination. I'm pretty sure all of you have this question. Now, first up, I have to say that my classic answer is depends, right? So it all depends on your workload, your size of the data, your SLO, what kind of compute you have chosen. But since there is an initial snapshot and there is change data, the question is about change data latency. What we're looking for here is very high single-digit minutes. So you should probably see the change data move into very high single-digit minutes. The initial snapshot might take some time. It depends. If you have 10 terabytes worth of data or 20 terabytes worth of data, don't expect to be there in a minute because it's near real time. That's a ton of data. Now, depending upon the workloads, so you might have, like, for example, your existing workloads is running 70% of capacity or 90% capacity. In those scenarios, our technology here, and hats off to all the product engineering folks who have done this phenomenal. It's a tough problem to solve. They've capped it. So to make sure that you do not take away the resources for the other.
I don't want to affect my workload.
Workload. Right? Okay. So you want to minimize the operational workload.
Okay. Now, I mentioned Synapse Link to start the session. So somebody may be asking, like, well, you already shipped that. What's the difference between these two?
So, good question. So Synapse Link SQL, when we launched this, it's specifically, it writes the capability to write to Synapse-related analytics in Synapse Warehouse, right? And mirroring is specifically designed, as you said, technology is for Fabric. Now, I know Synapse Link for certain capabilities, like it's not able to do like DDLs and some of the limitations. All of those are going to be addressed, and we are knocking that in. And
in Link, we wrote to like a dedicated pool.
Yes.
Here, it's in the OneLake, right? So now I can consume it anywhere OneLake can be consumed.
That is so classic. The compute and data is completely stored.
Like serverless type queries, that kind of type thing.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Now, what about this? Like, you publish committed transactions?
Yes.
Okay.
We publish only committed. So it's just when it's about to commit the transaction log, we take that and publish it to OneLake.
But how does that affect, my workload's not affected because you're reading the log. What about things like log truncation?
Yeah.
Could that be affected?
No, it should not be affected at all. So once it's done, it truncates the log.
Okay, now, and you have insights also in SQL to see some of this. There's some DMVs, I believe, things
Yes.
like that? Okay.
Yes, you have the ability to, there are some public DMVs. You want to see what's going on. Like if your DBA wants to know, hey, what's going on, which tables you added, what's the status of that. You can go back and query. It's all there in the docs. We have videos out there as well, so you can take a look at that. It's very simple.
So one huge question, though.
Yes.
This is Azure SQL.
Yeah.
Maybe you should ask the audience. Like, what are they using? Like, is it SQL Server?
So
yeah.
I'm going to pull this. So, thanks.
Yeah.
How many of you will use SQL Server on-prem or Azure SQL Server on-prem? Right. How about Azure SQL DB?
Oh, it's a good mixture, right?
Good.
So I bet that folks want to see this in other places, like MI or even SQL Server. Is that coming?
Yeah. So we have Azure SQL for MI for mirroring coming in as private preview as well. So it's coming pretty soon. And you'll be able to sign up. We'll have some information on that as well. And SQL Server and other capabilities are also on the roadmap.
Absolutely on the roadmap. Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of great questions. Thank you for doing all, Idris. I'm really going to actually turn it over to you now, like I did before. Right. So take it back over to you, Idris.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
So now that you've seen how mirroring has been set up, how easy it is to configure some of these questions, You may wonder, what's next? Are we done? No. I mean, that's just the start, right? You're just getting your data into Fabric. So before we get there, I did mention about that we have now the capability to support column-level DDLs. So this is what you all asked for. These are all the limitations we had in Synapse Link. And now you can do that. You can also, what's coming up in the end of next month, early July, you'll be able to see more DDL support. You'll be able to do altering your, renaming the tables, renaming the columns, dropping the particular table. They all will be supported while you're actively mirroring. So in the past, you had to stop that. You have to stop mirroring, go back and change that table. That friction, that user experience is simplified. So talk about that. We want to see how these experiences are being unlocked with mirroring. So we want to see, now that the data is all available in Fabric, right, there are a lot of these capabilities, which I would like to invite Anna to show some demos on the various capabilities. Anna?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Idris. Hey, folks. Excited to be here and show you some of the things you can start to do now that you've mirrored the data. So I'm going to start here in Fabric, and you can see that Bob went ahead and configured those mirrors for us earlier. So what I'm doing is I'm going into one of these mirrors, and I'm just confirming that I can access everything, except right now I'm accessing it from the SQL Analytics endpoint. So this is a read-only endpoint, and I'm reading and querying, just using regular T-SQL, the data landing in 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃. Now what I can do is create shortcuts so that I can kind of see these things next to each other. So you can see that I have both the tables that have been mirrored by Bob, and now I can start to try to do a join between these two tables. Now I have to warn you all that I am not very good at writing T-SQL, and so this join takes me a while. But I wanted to share some information on what we're working on here. Some of you might have seen some of the copilot enhancements that we're working on in the DW space, and here is no exception. So what we're working on is something called Fix and Explain and an inline copilot experience. So instead of me struggling through writing these joins, I could write a comment and say like, hey, join these two tables on this, and it will write that query for me. So that's something that's coming very soon. I believe that SQL DW released that recently, and so it will come for the SQL Analytics endpoint just a little bit further down the road. Now, the other capability involved in that is fix. So if I have a query that won't run, I can just hit fix, and it will tell me, where is my query going wrong. And similarly, explain. Let's say I get a query from someone else on how to do this join. I'm not really sure how it works. Well, here's another scenario where I can hit explain, and all these things are coming soon. But for now, I just had to write the query myself. But as you can see, I can very easily join these two data sources together, the mirrored data landing in 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗃, not impacting my read-write workloads at all. Okay, great. What else can I do? Now, the next thing I wanted to explore is this lakehouse concept. So what I can do is I can go in and I can create a new lakehouse. And a lakehouse is going to enable me to make shortcuts to both of these mirrored endpoints and then use Spark notebooks on top of them. And we'll do some AI stuff, some light AI, right? A small package of AI. So here I am, I'm in the lakehouse now, and you can see I can make a shortcut to my data in OneLake and very easily navigate for the AdventureWorks different mirrored databases. You can see them both there. And when I set up this shortcut, I'm able to pick which tables that I want to include in this shortcut. Maybe I don't want everything, or maybe I have no idea. So in this case, I'm just going to bring everything over. So I have options to very easily query this data using the shortcut from OneLake and from Spark. So I've got that one shortcut. You can see it just takes a few seconds to load up there. In the meantime, I can go grab the other one for the Cosmos DB mirrored database. So again, super easy to find it, get started, select the table with the ratings that I want to do. And now I have these shortcuts available in my lakehouse. I didn't have to move any data to do this. I'm just creating the pointers so I can go query the data where it is. All right. Okay, we have some data now. Now let's do some light AI. So what I can do is say, let's go create a new notebook. And in this notebook, what we're going to do is we're going to call Azure OpenAI, and we're going to look at the reviews data and try to figure out, okay, what should we do? What should we do better as an organization for AdventureWorks? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste some very simple code in here that calls OpenAI. There's nothing fancy happening here. And then once I have that kind of helper function, I can create a call to OpenAI. So I'm going to run this, and then I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. So here I'm using Spark SQL. I wanted to call out, it's very similar to T-SQL. The difference here is that I can really just reference the shortcut. I don't have to put like the whole connection to get to the mirrored databases and just reference the shortcut and use it like that. And then you can see the prompt that I'm sending to OpenAI. So just these are reviews for my bike products. Show me a summary of the feedback, give me some suggestions on what I should do to improve. And then we're pushing that out, and we're going to see what the response is. It just takes a couple seconds to make that call. You can see this is that join data, very similar, the exact same as what we saw earlier. And you can see the prompt that's being sent to OpenAI. So, just asking it to review all the feedback and let me know what we should do. So it says, hey, overall, people are satisfied. They like the quality and the variety. However, you could improve your website experience and your product availability. So you can also focus on offering competitive pricing. So it's reviewing all of the reviews and doing the analysis for me. And now you can see this is useful. And maybe I actually just want to throw this in the lakehouse with the rest of my data. Maybe I want to reference it somewhere else. Maybe I want to get the feedback over time, see how it's changing, and see how it changes based on the impact, based on the changes I make to the website or the inventory. So you can see what I can do is I very simply write it as a delta table right into my lakehouse, and I can use it there. Okay, so this is pretty neat. Now I have my mirrored data. I could do some analysis. You can see how you could do a lot more in this space very easily. And again, I'm not interacting with that read-write, only the read-only analytics endpoint. Now, the next thing I can do is come back into my lakehouse and say, hey, now I want to put some reporting here, and I want to show people this data and build some analytics on top of it. Maybe I also want to surface my AI improvements from the suggestions for OpenAI. So after I have a semantic model created, I can go into basically create a new report from that model. And I'm no Power BI expert, so this is a place where I really lean on Copilot to at least get me started. So I just go into Copilot and say, hey, create a report, and I'm trying to do customer behavior analysis. That's kind of the goal of all this for me. So I ask it to go and create a page, and in a couple seconds, it's going to create a pretty good starting point for me. And while it's doing through this, in the data, you can see all the different, my shortcuts are there, the delta tables that I added, I can just access it all right here from the lakehouse connection. So you can see this base report has been created, and you could see how I could do some other interesting things here, but pretty much right off the bat, I have a great starting point and really was able to go from this mirrored data that Bob mirrored for me to creating something kind of cool. So what do you think?
Awesome. I think what do you all think about it? I mean, the other thing I think was looking at the data engineering and the shortcuts thing. I don't know if you noticed, but you have the ability to bring data from other clouds as well. So you can bring from S3 or GCP, et cetera. And we had a couple of customers who are actually doing that, and they're finding a lot of value because now we can do a truly across database, not only just within the Microsoft ecosystem, across the cloud. So it's absolutely fantastic.
And there's one more thing I wanted to show. So this is great. I set this up. Let's say it's really more advanced than it is today. But let's say I make it really nice and really fancy and blah, blah, blah. But then, Bob comes to me and he says, hey, I'm going to add some columns. And I'm like, whoa, like this might mess everything up because maybe I have to go create these mirrored connections and create these shortcuts again, create all of this again. That's not super ideal. But the great thing with some of the things we're continuing to remove and as blockers is no problem. So I can flip right back to my again, I'm looking at the data in the lakehouse through the shortcut to the mirrored endpoint. And sure enough, we can add the columns too. So none of my workflow is impacted by this. So that's just a glimpse of what you can do to get started now that you're in the world of Fabric. So thanks so much, Idris. I'd love to pass it over to you to learn more about.
Thank you so much, Anna, for the demos. And what Anna just showed right now has alleviated the pain points of a lot of customers out here. So DDLs, while the mirroring is being active, and I was stressed about it earlier, but this is one of the very much requested asks from you all. So you've been like wondering, okay, what are the customers saying about this, right? So you can see some of the quotes right here. The customers, what they're saying is they're streamlining their processes. They're reducing their cost, removing processes, capabilities, removing some of these environments and things which are not needed to begin with. And you can see how it removes an entire layer of work. So 3 things which I'm taking away from these quotes is 0 ETL, that you don't have to do all these ETL, managing, compute, resources and that. You're also getting faster time to insights. And this whole thing overall is reducing their total cost of ownership. So, we showed you, we walked about, we told you what it is, we demoed, this is what our customers are telling about. So, this is where, early on we had a poll saying, how many folks are using SQL Server on-prem. And I want to show, what are some of the things, I'd like to invite Bob here to talk about what are some of the things you can do from SQL Server and Fabric. Bob, is there some, you can talk about it?
Well, it's really great. I think Miriam's got the promise. It's where we need to be snapshotting your data, near real-time analytics. But being a SQL Server person and know what's in SQL Server 2022 NMI, I challenged myself, how could I get in the Fabric today? Can I show you?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, let's go show you that.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. So maybe you today are using SQL using partitioning. And one of the things you like to do perhaps is archive cold data with partitions, switching partitions. So I'm like, I can do that. I can take a partition and switch it and put it into an archive table. And with SQL 2022 NMI, I can use a new capability called 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗃. I can go create an external table, like a virtual table, based on this archive table, and export Parquet into storage. Could be S3 storage, S3 compatible storage, or even Azure storage itself. Well, that's pretty cool. And then when I run a query against the external table, I'm really querying the Parquet. So now I have a very inexpensive way of archiving cold data outside of SQL into a common format like Parquet. So I said, well, that's really interesting. What about this Fabric thing? Well, with shortcuts, I can now take that shortcut and now be part of all the Fabric goodness, and potentially even join with things like Excel files. Excel files, why would you do that? Let me show you a scenario. So I've got a SQL 2022 database where I've created a partition based on sales data. And I've basically organized the sales data by quarter. So I've created my database, and what I like to do, based on what I showed in the diagram, is take a partition that's cold, an older sales quarter, and go archive it. But first, I want an external data source. This is an Azure storage. This could be S3 or S3 compatible storage. And I've got Parquet I want to deal with. With that information, I can go first switch my partition to another table, that's my archive table in SQL, and then here's the 𝗦𝗲𝗃 beauty. I can create this external table based on the archive table and export this data as Parquet out into my other storage facility. That's great. When I do that, what do I do with it? Well, I can run a query like this. And that query is going against Parquet at this point. And Parquet is actually very efficient, more than you think, about accessing data because it's columnar based. Or I could even do a union with my hot data. Well, where's the Fabric come into play? Well, let's go into Fabric and create a shortcut for that Parquet storage data. Now keep in mind, it could be S3, it could be S3 compatible storage. I just did a demonstration at Dell World yesterday in Las Vegas about how to do this with Dell ECS storage on premises. So I've got my Azure storage shortcut. I've got connection credentials I want to put in here. I've got a name. I've got information that I want to say about what container. And then I'm bringing into Azure Storage, the actual container is going to come up for me that I can choose. Now that's great. So I can pick the container. I could have picked multiple containers. I've decided to actually archive my containers based on like a sales month. You can pick whatever organization you want. Now that I've done that, this is going to appear to me almost like a table. Now I could go at this point, since it's Parquet, and use the notebook experience like Anna showed. But my goal is to actually go build a Power BI report, and I'm no guy in the cube, but I want to build a Power BI report based on this data, joined with my Excel data. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to take my Parquet and go load it as a table for Delta inside the Fabric and give it a name. The name is going to be very familiar to me. So remember when Anna showed that experience? When I do this, I can start querying this just like a table. So if you see here, it looks like a normal database table to me. I can view it. I can go to the endpoint for analytics and run queries against it. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, sorry. So once I run that query, this is where it gets really interesting. I love playing with technology. So there's something called OneLake Drive. On my laptop, I went and I said, hey, connect me to my OneLake. And here's my data lake house. I'm going to go copy an Excel file in there, drag and drop on my laptop. So I'm going to drag it and drop it in there, and when I do it, it's going to automatically show up in my lakehouse for me. Let's go back to the Fabric and see it. There we go, hit files, there it is. Well, I want to join this and put it in Power BI report, so I'm going to take that and load it also as a Delta table. And when I pick it, it knows how to read CSV formats. I've got the name, which is my sentiment data. So effectively now, I have my customer data, my product data that's archived, and I have this Excel sentiment data. So if I had a financial analyst, for example, in my company, I could do this for them, and now they can do whatever they want to do with this data. Now they could potentially go run like a SQL query, like a join, and again, imagine in your mind, using the fix explain concept that Anna talked about coming, somebody could be aided to go generate SQL queries to join all this data together. I'm kind of a SQL person, so I kind of know how to join this. But again, I'm joining Excel data, archive SQL data, taking advantage of that archive data there, and putting it into the fabric. So what do I do next? Well, I want to do Power BI. So I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to create my semantic model, and I'm going to have it auto-generate the report versus using Copilot. Power BI knows to look at that model and build a proposed template of a report based on my data. Now, this is interesting. It's some bar charts. I'm a 90s person. It looks really great to me. But why not use AI? Look at this. There's something called a narrative visual in Power BI that has a Copilot. So I took this narrative, and I dragged it over into this part of the report, and I said, hey, Copilot, build me an executive summary of the data in my report. So it goes in, I said, do exec summary. I hit the word create, and there you go. So now in my report, as an analyst, I could build a report for my executives that has the data plus an executive summary using generative AI. This is the power of Gen AI. It's taking this data and the schema and not just giving me answers back, but giving me actual details of analyzing the sentiment data and things we should pay attention to about the performance of our salespeople. Pretty cool data, pretty cool way to start our journey of archiving SQL data with 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 or SQL 2022 as Parquet, and then taking advantage of the fact that I have this data in a format like Parquet in other sources with shortcuts, and then combining with things like Excel. So one last thing. This is just announced by the Fabric team, something called AI skill. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to the data science persona, and I'd like to be able to do natural language statements against my data. So let me go over and pick AI skill. I'll click it. I'll pick on AI skill here. And then by doing this, I now have a list of my tables that's in my lakehouse, and I can start writing natural language statements against it. And what I just love about natural language is I don't have to understand SQL query syntax, right? So I'm putting a natural language in here, I click it, and now I have been brought to an experience where it generates the SQL query for me with results to preview what it looks like. And this AI skill is very powerful because when you're done with this, you can publish this as almost like a chat experience for others to go chat with the data you have now in the Fabric. So Parquet data archive from cold storage for sales, joining with Excel inside Fabric, running Power BI reports, running queries, AI skill I'll put together. You can do this today. So if you don't have Azure SQL Database for mirroring, you can go set up your SQL Server with SQL Server 2022 or managed instance and do this capability now. Okay, we've showed you a lot, but you're wondering about the future. We've touched on some of this. It is the intention of Idris and the team to take any limitations that we had with Synapse Link and for Azure SQL mirroring to get rid of those friction points. More DDL operations he talked about, additional data type support, making sure we have the right network and security enhancements to connect to your SQL database, relaxing requirements for even things like primary keys. That's a big request from our customers. We see these requests and we're going to respond to them. You've already seen Idris talk about announcements here at Build that responded to some of those things. And then as we alluded to before, we want mirroring ground to cloud. Managed Instance is announced a private preview here at Build for you to sign up for. We've got a link in a second to show you. And we want everywhere SQL exists to be able to be mirrored into the Fabric. Now, here's what's interesting. There are new SQL experiences coming to the Fabric. We're in private preview right now. There's a QR code for you right now. Where's Anna in the audience? Oh, she's right there. Maybe you see some stickers on your chairs with some information. Anna would love to talk to you about, would you like to participate in a new experience for SQL in the Fabric ecosystem? So please see her here after the talk today. She'll be at the booth as well to talk to, or use this QR code to sign up and speak to her directly. Now, let's talk about resources. Right there at the top, the deck is already there. akms.ms/bobwardms. There's a Microsoft build folder out there already. By the way, there's a treasure trove of decks out there. We are open source presenters at Microsoft. You take this deck and you show it to the rest of your company. You take this deck and present it yourself to other people with the demos all built in. There are other signups we have and other resources for you to look at, including, again, the QR code for the SQL Fabric experience. Don't miss Data Exposed. Anna is the rockstar host of Data Exposed. Every new capability we build with SQL and our data technologies eventually makes its way on her show. She was doing some recording on campus this week for some things coming up. And then the Managed Instance team. Again, private preview. They have a sign-up experience right here. Now, many in the room, you've picked, you know Azure Database. Did you know this? There is a free offer right now for the lifetime of your subscription. So imagine now you taking a free Azure SQL Database and a trial for Fabric, and for free, start doing a proof of concept for mirroring. You can do it today and pay no money. And to emphasize again to you what Idris said, when it comes to mirroring, the mirrored storage is free per your capacity units, 1 terabyte for a capacity unit. 64 capacity units, 64 terabytes of the free mirrored storage. So check out our free Azure Database offer. Combined with the trial for Fabric, it's a great combination. Other sessions today that we have at this event. This afternoon, I will be here, I think it's in the same room, maybe it's in a different room, here today, talking about AI. Talking about new SQL AI experiences, more Copilot demos. Tomorrow at 8:30, I'll be with Shirish Toda doing even more Copilot demos in his Azure Databases session. We also have a session tomorrow talking about modernizing with Azure, and then finally a demo session talking about our mirroring experience with SQL. So we got about 3 minutes left here in our session today. Anna and Idris, if you guys would kind of come up here for a second. I want to see if you have any, Kim's got the mic, so you guys may need to leave, but let's just take a few questions first. In the audience.
Please raise your hand and I'll go ahead and come to you.
Right here. And then right here.
I was just interested. That's weird. Sorry.
You're good.
I'm just interested about the security of it. So I have all the users set up at the table level or schema level security, and then I replicate it. And then what do I have to account for once it's there? I guess what personas?
Yeah. So any of your security which you have defined on your database level, that does not get cascaded into Fabric because that's really designed for your operational thing. Now you have capabilities in Fabric itself to secure it. So there's data governance and capabilities are there which you can do that and apply those right permissions because the personas are different from an analytics perspective. But yeah, we don't cascade any of these to procedures and those kind of functions as well.
Question here. You had a question? Right here, Kim, right over here. Look, Kim's getting some jogging in today.
Getting my steps in.
So really great information. My organization currently takes advantage of external tables within Explorer, Data Explorer, and I'm wondering if there are any underlying security concerns with the mirroring architecture underneath the hood, such that we kind of discovered on our own with external tables.
So external tables for SQL, you mean? Yeah. So external table for SQL is a SQL security concept, and you decide the securable of that in SQL Server. It's just a table. So you set up the permissions with that the same way you would do with any other table in your database, views, whatever you want to do. For mirroring, as Idris said, once you mirror the database in Fabric, you're now part of that security system. So you need to set up whatever security model you need there, because it may be a different set of people actually going after the mirrored data. But you have all the capabilities to secure that whatever way you want to do. Gosh, Kim, sorry, there's one over here and one over here, so like way over there.
I'll go here first.
We got about a minute left, so you could quickly go through questions. We're going to stay here afterwards too, by the way. So.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. A quick question, the semantic model which automatically gets generated by Fabric, do we have some flexibility to edit? Because sometimes, right, based on the column names, it may, like ID mapping, which may not really make sense.
Yeah, we're just part of the semantic model of Fabric, so you do whatever you can with semantic models you could normally do. We just generate it based on our data, and then you decide whatever you do with that model that you normally do with any model in Power BI and Fabric.
Okay, great, thank you.
Makes sense.
Somebody also very patient over there came at the back. So if we'll take this one and then just over there real quickly, then yeah.
I will be very fast. Maybe an off-topic question, but you have a connector for Azure SQL, one for Mongo. Do you plan to do the same for Oracle or MariaDB, MySQL, something like that?
Yes, so MySQL is definitely, they're all in the backlogs. We've got multiple requests, including SAP and other ERP as well. So they're all in the backlogs. MySQL and PostgreSQL, they're all coming up. They're all going to be a part of the roadmap.
The Fabric team's here at the event. Please chat with them in the booth about their whole roadmap. I think they've got sessions on this as well. You can talk to them about. Yeah. One last question. Yeah.
We are a U.S. government Microsoft tenant. So we're on the GCC low standard, and we want Fabric and all these tools. But do you have any idea if this has made it to the roadmap yet? All of this is still unavailable to
for mirroring
GCC tenants. Yes.
For Fabric.
Well, Fabric.
Oh, just Fabric in general.
Copilot,
Sorry,
AI,
yeah.
all these tools.
I'm not aware of where Fabric for GovCloud is on the roadmap. I'm not sure that it necessarily is anytime soon. So that would be something to share with the Fabric folks in the hub.
I have, and no one seems to know, and we're trying to make the decision, do we migrate off GCC, but really without a date, like, it'd be fine with us if you said 2 years, we don't even know. That lets us fund a migration project because we don't necessarily have to be on GCC now, but we made that decision years ago.
But you've already talked to the Fabric team about this, correct?
I have, and they don't know.
So one of the things we do, I'll just let you know, if it helps any, we take feedback from all the stuff we do here. We will give this feedback to the Fabric team. This is an often asked question, because I've seen it before myself.
Yes.
Guys, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. We'll see you at the rest of the conference.
Thank you all. Thank you, Bob and Anna, for having me over.
Thank you.